CGP! Tell me, buddy, I got an important question for you. Are you a Timmy?
No.
No?
No.
You sure about that? You sure?
100%.
How confident are you? How confident are you?
I am 100 billion% not Timmy. I am the guy Timmy's hate. I'm the guy Timmy's fear. I am the guy when Timmy goes to the local F&M and gets paired against me in round 1. I sweat him out. I call him on their missed triggers. I get him a game loss for a rules violation if I can. I destroy Timmy's.
Okay, that's good to know, because what I've created for you today is the Yu-Gi-Oh! Timmy test. You're probably wondering what that is. I am going to be showing you some of Yu-Gi-Oh's most famous and or infamous boss monsters. Cards that, you know, some of the Timmys, their eyes would light up with joy because they get to resolve their big crazy thing. And your goal is to tell me if you think, or rather to decipher rather, if any of these cards are actually the real deal and are cards that have made their way onto the ban list at any point or not. And you have to pick out the Timmy cards from the non-Timmy cards. Sound good?
Wait, am I also declaring it? So a banned card is not a Timmy card by nature
Correct.
because it was too good? I see.
Well, I won't say that. Like, a lot of the cards I'm going to be showing you, some of them are Timmy cards, some of them are not Timmy cards, but not ban-worthy, and some of them are just straight-up good cards generally. So we're kind of all over the place here, but there definitely are some Timmy cards in here. And I'll give you bonus points. One of these cards was actually so good, it actually got banned twice.
Wow.
So if you can pick that one out, I will be genuinely impressed out of the, like, 10 or so I have for you today. Sound good?
Yeah, bring it on.
All right,
If there's
let's go
one thing
ahead.
I know, it's how to dunk on Timmys, so this should be easy.
It's really just called the Timmy test because it's just like big giant boss monster the episode. So just keep that in mind as I show you your first card here.
Judgment Dragon. It is a level 8. What is that? Light? Light. Attack 3000, defense 2600. Dragon cannot be normal summoned, of course. Must be special summoned from your hand, in parentheses, by having 4 or more light sworn monsters with different names in your graveyard. You can pay 1,000 life points to destroy all other cards on the field once per turn during your end phase. Set the top 4 cards of your deck to the graveyard.
So let me give you some context here before we get into it. So for the purposes of this video, assume that every boss monster that I will be showing you is going to be basically sort of what the deck is trying to do. It's like its main win condition. If it sticks to the board or if it goes off, most likely you're going to win. So that's going to apply for all of these. For Judgment Dragon specifically, I hope I give you some context. The Lightsworn archetype, because Judgment Dragon is not a Lightsworn monster. The Lightsworn archetype, their whole gimmick is about milling. So all of the Lightsworn cards have an effect similar to the last text on Judgment Dragon, where it says send X number of cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard. And then they all just sort of have other just, you know, decent effects for what it's worth. So this is, Judgment Dragon is the Lightsworn archetype's boss monster. So tell us what you think.
What you're telling me is that getting cards in the graveyard is not very hard.
Correct.
Was this before or after Tier Limits?
I will let you know, this was actually very early on in Yu-Gi-Oh! This was from 2008, as a matter of fact.
Okay. Let's see. Gosh. Without seeing other light monsters, I'm like, if the Tier Limits thing went so hard, these can't be as good as those. They just
I will show you a basic Lightsworn monster, just to at least give you some context, because I think that'll at least help you out a little bit here. So you can give this a quick read.
Lila Lightsworn Sorceress. Hi! Level 4, 1700 attack, and only 200 defense. She got no booty? Really? It's weird. You can target one spell trap your opponent controls. This card's battle position cannot be changed until the end of your next turn. Also, change this card you control from face up attack position to face down defense. If you do, destroy that target once per turn during your end phase. Send the top 3 cards deck to graveyard.
So basically, every Lightsworn card, especially around this time, functions like this, where it has like some effect that does something on the field and then has an effect to mill during the end phase of the turn.
All right. So lots of things mill. This one deals with stuff. Seems like a control-y archetype, kinda. light. I guess it makes sense. The Judgment Dragon, is it really a Timmy card? This is a Wrath. It's a Wrath attached to a dragon.
I don't know. You have to tell us.
Like, blowing everything up is cool, dude. Like, that's control-y stuff. Timmys like to blow things up? Yeah, I guess they do. I guess they have to pay life because they don't have costs because everything's free. Destroy all other cards. So my feeling is if the opponent is doing the thing, it's pretty easy to see it coming because they're flipping over cards from their deck and they're playing these light-specific monsters. It doesn't feel like you should get blown out by Judgment Dragon if there's any way to play around it. Sometimes the cards that are available don't like allow that, but I think for the most part, you can see it coming. So if you just, I don't know, if you just go all in and somebody blows you out with Judgment Dragon after they played a light monster and milled and had like 2 or 3 creature, like light monsters with different names in their graveyard already, you can't be like, surprise Pikachu face, I got Judgment Dragon to the next turn.
I think that's a correct assessment. If they're playing Lightsworn, there's a pretty high likelihood Judgment Dragon's lurking in their deck.
If you can play around this, how less effective is it? It's still a very big monster. It blows everything out of the way so it can get its huge attack in. It does blow up your own stuff, but you probably have graveyard synergies, which isn't so bad. It is 1,000 life points, so if you can get the opponent low enough, maybe that cost is too high. Plus, all that they're left with is the one Judgment Dragon, maybe, although they can play things afterwards. I'm just trying to spell out some ways it goes. Also, the milling on end phase doesn't seem nearly as good. Obviously, the tier limits cards did it right away, and that was a whole different element. But milling at the end probably means that you don't have the resources when you want them, which makes the deck kind of slow. I see a few safeguards. This doesn't say once per turn, but why would you want to pay 1,000 life points multiple times? Oh, it says once per turn during end phase for the mill. Oh, is this part of the... So this is a good question. Is this part of the Enter's effect that you can pay 1,000 life?
No, it is a sorcery speed effect.
Okay.
That you pay 1,000 life to nuke the board.
Okay.
And you're correct. There is no once per turn on that specific effect.
Yeah, keep going. See what happens. Man. I feel like... So the board wipes I've seen... This one's a good one, but it seems like there are a lot of good ones that aren't that good because everything has haste, and I know very well in Magic that the more haste creatures there are, the worse your board wipes are. And again, you see this coming. And the mills that are for the class seem to be on end phase, which probably takes away from your ability to abuse it. I mean, it's just the first card, but I'm going to say this is classic Timmy card. This card didn't get banned.
Final answer?
Yeah.
So Judgment Dragon was an absolute menace. One thing you may have overlooked is that it doesn't say you can only special summon one Judgment Dragon at a time. So you could hypothetically, if you have 4 more Lightsworns engraved with different names, Judgment Dragon, nuke the field, then summon another Judgment Dragon, or 2 more Judgment Dragons, because we can have 3 copies of a card per deck, and swing at your opponent's face for 6,000 to 9,000 if that's the way the board sets up. Or if you have it normal summoned up to that point, you can bring out more things. I will say that the end phase part of the effect is, you're sort of right. There are some cards that have effects in the graveyard that may activate later on, or, you know, you have to wait for something to happen for you to want to use that effect. So, yes, you don't immediately get the full value, but sometimes you might mill something that you want to use a little bit later on anyway, especially around the time Judgment Dragon was printed. For people wondering, I'm talking about cards like Necro Garda, Plague Spreader Zombie, different things like that. And as a result, especially by older Yu-Gi-Oh standards, you were talking about how you've seen some of the newer stuff. Board wipes were not very common in old Yu-Gi-Oh! A lot of them got restricted or banned, especially around the time of Judgment Dragon's release. With that said, you are correct, CGB. This card was never banned.
See?
I believe at most it got semi-limited, so you could have only 2 copies, which the semi-limited list is complete bullshit anyway, but we'll do that for a different video. But you're on the board. You are on the board. JD was a very strong card for what it's worth, a very expensive card back in the day. The biggest issue is that Lightsworn was, because it was a deck that was based a lot on milling, it was not tier element. Let's say tier element is what Lightsworn always wished it was. That's, I think, the best comparison to make when it comes to that. All right, you're on the board, though. Congratulations. Let's see what you think about card number 2.
And for the record, I was never worried. Not for a second. All right. Trishula, the dragon of the ice barrier. I've got to pull out my Timmy voices. Water, 2700 attack. Defense, 2000. Level 9?
Correct.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Dragon Synchro effect. 1 tuner plus 2 non-tuner monsters. Lots of monsters. When this card is synchro summoned, you can banish up to 1 card each from your opponent's hand, field, and graveyard. The card in the hand is chosen at random. Of course, you can't show them what's in your hand. Everything will fall apart. Oh my god. Okay. You can banish up to 1 card each from hand, field, and graveyard. That's pretty good. Pretty good. That comes down and really removes some stuff. What would make this not good?
For context, we're now in 2011.
That is a while ago. Something like this was probably scary back then. Probably very scary. And I saw the tuners in the past, and we're assuming that there are plenty of tuner and non-tuners. So summoning this is what the deck is building up to.
Just to give you a little bit of context, this does require 3 monsters minimum. You need a tuner and 2 or more non-tuners. I will say for this time, most synchros only require 2 at a minimum. So this does require a little bit higher of an investment, but just so you have some context. So it is, you are having to put 3 guys into it.
Is banishing 1 card each from hand at random, field of your choice, and graveyard of your choice, I'm guessing. Is that enough to be far enough ahead to win the game in old Yu-Gi-Oh? This thing doesn't have protection. Like, if something else kills it, it's dead. And it only has the, payoff when it's synchro summoned. And, dude, I'm looking at this.
Okay.
And I definitely could see if it were easy to meet the requirements, it might see play, but banned back in the day, it was probably way stronger back in the day. My problem with it is just one of these coming out. I don't think it ends the game. I mean, you could exile exactly what you need, hit exactly what you need in the hand and their best thing, and get that thing out of the graveyard. And maybe it also breaks up a combo deck for realsies, and they can't possibly win. But it still feels like if you put, this is the big boss, this is the point of your deck. It feels like you put everything into this, and of course it's all meta relevant, but it feels like it runs into the wrong trap card, or it runs into something that interacts with it, or just gets removed, or you're too far behind and removing one thing wasn't enough. This seems like a very strong card, but I don't think it can be the top end on its own. I don't think it can be the problem on its own. I'm gonna say this card wasn't banned. This is classical Timmy. It's big, it's scary, it's powerful. How could you lose? And then somehow you do.
Final answer?
Yeah, final answer.
So one thing you may have overlooked with Trish is the fact that it doesn't target the cards that it's going after. It just says you can banish up to 1 card each from opponent's hand, field, and graveyard. How this works is that when you activate Trishula, and let's just assume there's no other interaction, the effect is resolving, your opponent has to preemptively decide in that moment if they have cards on the field. They have to sort of infer what the opponent is going to try to banish with Trishula, and that might force them into using cards early because they don't want to lose them to Trishula, depending on what those types of cards are. Whether it's a monster effect that can activate, maybe a spell or trap card they can activate that's set face down. It wouldn't typically be something in the hand during this period. So it can also just get additional value as a result of that, if that makes sense. Because since it doesn't target, if you were to target it, then they could use that card in response, and then maybe it didn't matter at the end of it. But because it doesn't target, they have to proactively flip the things, and then you can just say, I'm going to banish the other thing. Otherwise, you would just banish the first thing, and then it would just... So it's... that the fact that it doesn't target is huge, especially for this period in time. This might shock you. During this period, this was the best thing you could be summoning out of the extra deck. Trishula also was so powerful, especially before it made its way onto the list. you could have hand loops with Trishula where you could summon multiple copies of Trishula and start ripping multiple cards out of your opponent's hand on the very first turn of the game, because it doesn't have to banish from all 3 zones. So if your opponent doesn't have a field or a graveyard, you can just use Trishula and start banishing random cards out of their hand. You summon Trishula 2 or 3 times in the same turn if you have the deck that can do it. All of a sudden, your opponent's starting the game with only, a 2 or 3 card hand and doesn't really have a ton to work with. That's on the more degenerate side of things. But even outside of that, Trishula was just a powerhouse. Committing 3 cards, which a lot of the times there's a lot of ways to cheat around, because you could just have cards that produce tokens or just very cheap guys that you can summon out to the field that make the stars align to be able to summon Trishula relatively easily. Huge swing in momentum. Being able to banish stuff means the graveyard effects don't trigger. Similar to what I was telling you with Judgment Dragon, there are cards in the graveyard you might want to use later on. You could banish those so they don't have that for a follow-up play. And just hitting a card at random out of the hand, sometimes they're saving their best cards for the premier opportunity. This card was a menace, so much so, it was banned. This card was banned.
Wow.
Yep. You can believe it. Yeah, this was, like I said, this is the best thing your deck could probably be doing during this era. Crazy card. Crazy card.
It is not banned now, though, is it?
Correct. It's legal now. And it's fine, because this is a relic of 2011, that's for sure.
Holy cow.
But cool card though. Okay, and speaking of cool cards, we're actually going to stay in the Synchro era. I will warn you, you're going to have to blow this one up.
Oh my gosh, I opened the image and it's still the same size. We're zooming.
This one's not my fault. There's only like 1 printing of this
Oh
card.
my god, what the heck is going on here? The shooting Quasar Dragon. What the hell? Okay, well, we know max level, whatever this is. 1, 2,
that
3,
would be 12.
4. Thank you. 4,000 attack, 4,000 defense. As synchro effect. A tuner synchro monster plus 2 or more non-tuner synchro monsters.
So for context, you need to have synchro monster, not just any monster. They need to be synchro monsters that go into another synchro monster to make this. So it has an even steeper requirement. But again, for the purposes of this, the deck that is playing this can do this. That is like what the deck is designed to do.
Yeah, they can all do this on turn 1, because that's Yu-Gi-Oh!
That's Yu-Gi-Oh, baby.
Must be synchro summoned and cannot be special summoned by other ways, of course. This card's, is that maximum?
Correct.
Okay, we're gonna have challenges here. This card's maximum number of attacks per battle phase equals the number of non-tuner monsters used as its synchro material? Okay. Once per turn during either player's turn, when a card or effect is activated, you can negate it. And if you do, destroy it. Just touch this and be like, this, bam, gone. Nice. Once per turn during either player's turn. Nice. That's great. Okay. When this card leaves the field, you can special summon 1 Shooting Star Dragon from your extra deck. A Shooting Star Dragon is not the same thing.
Correct. A Shooting Star Dragon is this. I had to get it pulled up for you here. More text for you to read, but there you
go. Okay. No, my God. Sorry.
So you can ignore all the the level and the sync, because you're bringing it out for free. You're bringing it out for free.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. Just start reading the effect. Just start reading the effect.
Once per turn, you can excavate the top 5 cards of your deck, shuffle them back. Also, this card's maximum number of attacks per battle phase this turn equals the number of tuner monsters excavated.
So excavated means you just reveal them, and then so if you reveal out of the 5 cards, you reveal 2 tuners. This thing gets 2 attacks for the battle phase that turn, and then you just shuffle the deck with the cards back in again.
Okay. Once per turn, when a card thing activated would destroy something card quick effect thing, you can negate. Yep, destroy it. Why not? Once per turn, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can target the attacking monster. Banish this card. And if you do, negate the attack. During the next end phase, special summon this card banished by this effect. What the? Did they put enough on these cards?
I don't think so, personally. I think they could have added another effect or 2, but...
Oh my God. Does anybody know what this does? Have they actually read the whole thing? What the heck is going on? Must be synchro summoned. Okay.
So if you want the shorthand version, okay.
I kind of do, but you you're going to be like, one thing you may have overlooked on this card is, and I'll be like, that's because you gave me the short version. No.
Okay, I will give you the short version that isn't trying to like obfuscate information. Okay, the short version is it gets 2 attacks by default if you just make it with the bare minimum materials, which is a tuner and 2 non-tuners, because the attacks are based on how many non-tuners. So let's just assume it has 2 attacks, so it can do 8,000 if it goes face. Okay,
we're talking about the first one here.
The first one, yes, this is the first one. And then if something gets activated, you can negate and destroy it. And then if this dies, you bring out the other one. Is that simple enough? It attacks twice, negates and destroys something. Yes, if this dies.
When it leaves the field. So even if it gets bounced? Like
Great question. So, depending on at what point you played this card, the answer is yes or no. Initially, the answer would be yes. If it got bounced back to the extra deck, it would trigger. They changed that rule that something bounced back to the extra deck cannot resolve in the extra deck. So now that would no longer be the case. That is only the case if it gets bounced to the extra deck. If it goes to the grave, if it gets banished, it's still able to activate because it's in like a public like information zone, I guess.
What did this change happen because of this card?
There were several cards that have this when this card leaves the field text, and it was, I don't know if it was necessarily because of this, but it wasn't the only card that this was an issue with, let's just say.
Oh my God. You made me read all this. I hope it's banned.
This is just the biggest trail of breadcrumbs to lead you into the pitfall that I've set for you.
I think it's really funny if this was banned twice because there's 2 of them.
That's funny.
Is that what you would do to me? Is that what this is?
I'm only asking about Quasar. I'm not asking about Shooting Star. I will let you even know Shooting Star was not banned.
Thank you. That's nice.
I will even help you with that.
Is there even, I gotta read freaking Quasar again.
Like I said, 2 attacks. Once per turn, it can negate and destroy something, and then if it dies, you get out Shooting Star.
Well, to play...
That's all it does.
Okay, to play the Shooting Star, you need a Stardust Dragon? I don't want to know.
Well, Shooting Star is just... Shooting Star is just getting summoned for free with Quasar. You can ignore the way you properly summon Shooting Star.
Yeah, I love that there's all this text, and it's like, well, you can ignore this, and you can ignore that until you can?
Well, you can summon Shooting Star the right way if you want, but why would you do that when Quasar summons it for free?
It's free.
It's
so
free.
It's free.
It's free. Everything's free.
Oh my God, this card is obnoxious. This is some nasty stuff. The card's maximum number of attacks, so 2 attacks just right off the rip.
Right, and more potentially if you want, but let's just say 2 for, simplicity's sake.
And once per turn, during either player's turn, they try to do something, you give them the middle finger. And if they finally somehow successfully deal with this, they get a little of that. Is this why banishing something was so useful? No, that banishing leaves the field, right?
Nope, that's leaves the field. Yep, it would still trigger.
Is there any way around this? Like gaining control of it, I guess.
You could gain control of it. Yeah, that's a way. I will say that's very uncommon in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because they banned a lot of the best take control cards, but it's technically possible.
Oh my God. The text is disgusting. It's disgusting.
But am I just painting the brick wall, CGB? Is the tunnel being painted just for you? You're rounding the corner at full speed.
We're going to continue to assume that the decks that play this can just do this, and that happens on turn 1 sometimes.
Correct. Especially with this card, the deck is literally designed to play this on turn 1.
And it's in a similar era to the last one, the Synchro era.
Correct. This is, I want to say 2013, 2014. It's only a couple years after
you
Trish.
Said that. Okay. Was it legal at the same time as Trish?
Trish may have been banned before this was legal, but don't quote me on that.
Okay. Well, you also said when this was, Trish was before this. So that means Trish at the time being the biggest and the baddest doesn't mean that, it overrides this, because this came after.
Correct.
They learned nothing.
To be fair, shooting Quasar Dragon it is steeper to summon. So Trishula, a lot of decks could just play because it's what we call generic, where it just requires a tuner and non-tuners and not any specific things. Quasar requires those monsters to also be synchro monsters, which is a lot of hoops to jump through. But like I said, the decks that were playing this were designed to play this. So Trish was played in basically every deck during this period, where Quasar was only be played in decks that were specifically trying to get it out, if that makes sense.
Like, comparing cards to cards, this thing is toxic and evil and seems absolutely no fun of any kind. And whoever gets the first one, do I understand, like, can use its ability to negate the opponents, and then they get the other monster. And
I mean, you'd probably want to try to negate something before they get to that point.
Sure,
but
yeah,
yes,
yeah,
in
yeah.
theory, you're technically correct. Yes.
And then on their turn, you negate that monster. Oh my God. What a nightmare. It just seems so lame. Just the staring match of, hey, are you going to use your effect to negate that? I don't know. I guess I'm trying to figure out if you're trying to bait me. It's all bad. Everything about it is bad. No matter what, if this is out, it seems like hell on earth. Compared to the other card, this one has way more alarm bells. If you can just turn one, do this, how can you put up with this for an extended period of time? And then you look at the two cards and it's like, I guess if you ban one, it's got to be the shooting Quasar, which is the main point of evolution that we're talking about here. My gut says this one got banned. I don't even want to. I want to try to defend it. I can't. This seems like such a nightmare. This just seems miserable to deal with. I hate it for existing. Sure, ban it. Let's go.
Final answer?
Yeah.
This card's fine.
Yeah, okay. Why? How?
Okay, so the reason why Quasar's fine is because typically the decks that were playing Quasar, I told you that basically their main goal is to summon this, where I told you Trish is a bit more flexible and that every deck would play Trish just because Trish was just good. But Quasar had a lot of hoops that it required to jump through, so much so that even if you got to Quasar, you were kind of all in on Quasar. And if Quasar got outed, you kind of just lost the game. So even though it seems like a crazy card, there's a lot of ways to deal with it. So first of all, it only has the effect to negate something once. So if you have multiple ways to like out it, like, so let's say you just have removal spell. They negate removal spell. Okay, second removal spell, it dies. Like, great. You just spent like your whole 5-card hand to summon this thing that dies to 2 cards. Granted, they get to summon Shooting Star Dragon, but Shooting Star Dragon is not as hard to deal with compared to Shooting Quasar, because Shooting Star Dragon only only negates certain types of effects. Don't get me wrong. It's still really annoying to deal with these types of cards just because they're just so robust and have like these protection effects and such. But the juice isn't really worth the squeeze at the end of the day. And so it was sort of balanced by the fact that it was like very feast or famine, where it's like you get in all your materials to make this guy. If it's good enough to just stick and win you the game, then it will. But if your opponent has like multiple ways to out it, then they're probably going to be fine. And so as such, some decks would, like, some people would play it and it would be like a very fun deck. It's from like the anime and stuff too, which is why people like it. For the most part, it's just, it doesn't live up to all the text. The text there is, it seems a lot more menacing than it actually is.
Why doesn't dies to removal, and in this case, dies to 3 removal, work on anything else in your game? That argument hasn't worked once the whole time we've been working together.
It's really difficult because there are some cards that just like, okay, it has an effect when you play it on the field. And then, okay, Quasar will negate that effect. But then maybe it also has an effect in the graveyard. And then Quasar can't negate that because it can only negate one thing per turn. So it really is just a matter of like being able to double up and just do things that it's only one negate at the end of the day. That's all it is. It's one negate on a giant guy. There's like nothing else really going on here. I'm not going to say it's not like good or annoying when people summon it, but at the same time, you kind of look at it and you're like, oh, that's annoying anyway. And then you kind of just like do your thing.
Okay.
If it was released earlier or maybe more generic to summon, then maybe it would have seen a lot more play. But the problem is it was just, you were all in. If it got outed, you lost the game. So not really much else to it.
Sure. I do feel like I context bombed on this one. I feel like I didn't. I don't know.
Well, let's see if you context bomb on this one.
Oh God, I gotta zoom in on this too.
Sorry.
Yeah. Apocalyport Towers.
I'll help you out. Apocalypfort Towers.
Apocalypfort. Okay. Earth, as flying things often are. Attack 3000, defense 2600, level 10, and machine effect. Cannot be special summoned. Requires 3 Oli?
Clee. It's a Q.
Oh, it's a Q.
It's a Q.
How can I tell? Clee tributes to normal summon / set. If this card is a normal summoned set, it is unaffected by spell trap effects and by activated effects from any monster whose original level / rank is lower than this card's current level. I mean, that's like none of them at this point. All special summon monsters lose 500 attack and defense. Like for good?
As long as Apocalypfort Towers is up. Yep.
Once per turn, you can make your opponent send 1 monster from their hand or their side of the field to the graveyard, their choice. Once per turn. Each turn?
Only during your turn. That's not a quick effect.
Make your opponent send 1 monster from hand or side of the field. All right. 3. What are the Clee tributes?
For the purposes of this, just assume it's very easy to get 3 Clee monsters on the field. That's the archetype Cliffort. And you sacrifice those, tribute summoning. You sacrifice those, and you would tribute summon out the towers.
What level of all-in do you think is required to do such a thing?
Very minimal investment, I will say.
Interesting.
It is quite easy, and you will still have follow-up after the fact.
It is unaffected by spell traps and by activated abilities of any monsters. Okay, so it's immune to a lot of stuff. All special summon monsters lose that. Well, since everything is special summoned, that's quite the effect. Once per turn, you can make your opponent send 1 thing from hand or side of the field. Is this a Timmy card? Really? This seems like a stacks piece in Magic, which is like the ultimate in annoying.
Interesting. Okay.
Like things that make all your opponent's stuff lose abilities or lose the ability to attack or just attack for no damage. Like those things are not considered Timmy cards. Those are considered very evil. You have evil Timmys in your game.
Well, for context, we would consider shooting Quasar Dragon a Timmy card. So that's what we're working with.
I see. So it's possible to get like 2 or 3 of these.
Yes, it is. Theoretically, yes, it is.
And then your opponent's creatures just can't attack or defend for shit. At least they're good ones. They're special summoned monsters. I don't know how many times I can't recall other cards that have text of like lose 500 attack and defense. So I feel like combat's a really like big part of your game. In Magic, like these kind of effects you can play around from a variety of other angles with combo and with control. So those cards are very limited to what matchups they're good in. And in Yu-Gi-Oh, it feels like monsters are pretty core. I mean, you've discussed combo decks and you've discussed control decks, but man, they don't seem to come up that often when we're doing these videos.
I would say your assessment's correct. Monsters are definitely the core of the game and have only more so gotten to the forefront as time has gone on.
And the idea that not only are many of them losing their attack and defense stats, it also buries 1 basically each turn. And if they don't play anything out, then you can still hit the hand? That's nasty. If you have 2 of these, that's so nasty. Yeah, trying to imagine how this changes the game. Like, if they can't get rid of this, it feels like they can't win combat. Feels so hard to win combat. So if that's not happening, and at the same time their monsters are getting just sent to hell from the hand or the yard.
Well, and this thing can attack too, so
I mean, it's also going to try to kill them. So they have to try to do something, but there isn't much they can do. They're down 500 defense if this is alive, and they can't target it with a monster ability or a spell or a trap. Is it board wipe or bust? I guess there were some other tricky ways to do it, what that you showed me. Like, the more I see more of these cards, the more like silly cards that like let you tribute an opponent's creature or something. make more sense. But I mean, there's always ways around it. But man, is there enough ways around it in a format? This seems like a big problem.
I will say a board wipe won't do it either, because a board wipe's a spell or a trap or a monster.
Yeah, so
it's unaffected, not untargetable.
So if they were trying to create a monster that you had to play a huger monster to beat, they in a way did, but you can't even use its effect. It would have to actually get into combat with it and win. It seems so hard. And if you have two of these, that's impossible. And it's not like you can, it's not going to give you much time anyway, because it attacks for a bunch, but it does like build up, right? This is the card that was banned twice.
You're calling it now. You're not even going to see everything else. You're just calling it now.
I didn't know I got to see everything else. I didn't know the rules of this engagement.
Yeah, you can. I'll let you wait till we get through everything to decide at the end. I'll wait, but if everyone will know where your head's at if that's the case. So, okay. So for now, you think it was banned at least once.
Yes.
Final answer.
Yes.
You would be correct, CGB. It's actually very funny you mentioned it, because the monsters that are used to tribute over the opposing monsters is basically one of the only ways to out this card at the time. Those are called kaijus. There's like other cards that do the kaiju thing, but kaijus were the best at doing it. And yeah, this card was an absolute menace. So we colloquially call these cards towers cards for the foreseeable future. Anytime a card has the text that says unaffected by basically everything, for all intents and purposes, we call that a towers, because this is the first card that sort of had this text. And it would linger over the format very heavily, because, boy, if your opponent summoned this card, you basically were going to lose the game. It wasn't impossible to out. I said there were the kaijus, and people had those both in their main and side decks. There's a handful of cards that can randomly take this card out that people could play in their extra decks. But that's really about it. So essentially, you'd have to stop your opponent from getting to the point where they can summon this. Otherwise, a lot of the times the game would typically be over. And yeah, people fucking hated this card. And so thankfully it got banned. It's actually unbanned now, but it's because we have way worse things to deal with than this. And there's more outs to dealing with something like this than there were 10 years ago, because this card's from about 2014, 2015, I want to say. So very banned card, very annoying card. And no one ever wants to deal with towers because it's not fun. It is not fun at all. So you got it. Good job.
Woo! Freaking towers. All right, now I'm just going to run towers archetypes everywhere I can. I'm running the towers archetype.
You know, that is what some people do. I will not sugarcoat it. There is still no shortage of towers type cards that they keep printing for some godforsaken reason or another. Anyway, you did so well with synchros. We're back to synchros.
I'm just reading the name. Red hot. Nope, not even correct. Hot red dragon archfiend king Calamity.
That's what he sounds like, actually. Yeah, that's exactly it. You got it.
Are we trying hard enough with the name? Are there enough muscles on this body?
I honestly think the muscles need muscles.
What the hell is that? Okay. Whatever. This has got to be a level 12 then by previous math. Okay, yeah, of course. 4,000 attack, 3,500 defense. Something about dragon and synchro, something about some requirements. When this card is synchro summoned, you can activate this effect. For the rest of this turn, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects on the field. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this effect's activation. Okay. If this card destroys a monster by battle, inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack. If this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can target one level 8 or lower dark dragon synchro monster in your graveyard and special summon it.
And for all intents and purposes, you need one to make this in the first place. So basically, if it dies, it gets back the thing that you used to summon it. So just think of it that way.
Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this effect's activation is a really funny line of text, because by the nature of like the rule structure of in Magic, this would make no sense. It's just killing me. I activate this effect. In response, I activate. Oh, you can't. You can't activate that effect because the effect says you can't activate that effect, but the effect's on the stack.
That's actually exactly how it works. That is exactly how it works, actually. Yep.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Ultimate nerd moment. This card destroys a monster by battle. If this card destroys a monster by battle, you go attack their biggie boom boomy, and it dies, and they take that damage. If this card in its owner's possession is a really funny text, is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can bring back the thingy. So if you bring back the dragon synchro monster, can you then just kick that and 2 more tuners to bring another one of these out of the extra deck?
Sure, why not?
Why not? Cool. For the rest of this turn, is it possible to synchro summon stuff on the opponent's turn?
Yes.
Really? In this era with this deck and this card? Oh, good.
You piecing it together now?
I mean, we're cooking. And then this thing, like, and then somehow, like, you get rid of this and bring back the other thing and just bring this out again and time walk them again? And they just can't take turns?
I'll level with you. I don't think they're getting another turn after the fact, but, you know.
Okay, good to know. Let me see this again. When this card is synchro summon, activate this for the rest of this turn. Cannot activate. Okay, so they do nothing on their turn, and they can't respond to it because that's funny. And then the next turn is take 4,000.
Minimum. Because you could still play other stuff. You're not locked out of it.
They kill this, you get the thing back. Let's assume it also has a good benefit. And as long as you got 2 other tuners in range, you can somehow do this again on the opponent's turn. Does it take another piece to do it on the opponent's turn? Do you need a special card?
So there are cards that say, or have quick effects that say during your opponent's turn, or just at instant speed, you can synchro summon as the effect. So the effect literally just says synchro summon using monsters you control. Okay. Where typically synchro summoning is a sorcery speed action that you would take. These cards let you synchro summon during the opponent's turn. Or even on your turn. They're quick effects, so it's an instant speed. So like if your opponent tries to threaten you, you could put that on the stack and synchro before the effect resolves.
Maybe the right way to ask it is, was getting it out on the opponent's turn a rare occurrence when this was legal?
I like you to say when this was legal. That means you're already assuming it was banned.
No, I'm just asking. Just placing the time because it's an eternal format. When this was the hotness, if it ever was, I guess.
Well, again, it's eternal format. So, but I'm telling you, there are the tools to synchro summon this on the opponent's turn.
Yeah, I just don't have a lot of context for how hard that is. That's like, is
Remember what I said. Remember what I said. For the purpose of this, it is not hard to summon these things.
I guess to really clarify what I'm trying to say is, was it hard to do it on the opponent's turn? And, man, this seems like the kind of all-in you can go for because, like, just take their turn. It's so mean. And then you're going to take another one if you have to, but you said the game's basically over by then. Makes sense to me. I mean, it is kind of toxic. Definitely feels toxic, and you can't respond to it. Is there some wiggle room? It might be something I'm missing. Is there something I am missing here that's like, okay, opponent sets the pieces, pass to you, have a nice turn 1. Oh, wait, I play this, and you get no turn 1, and then I get my turn 2, and I'm attacking you for 4,000 plus doing other things. Is there a way to wiggle out of it? I don't see it. I guess you have to do
Consider you cannot activate cards or effects. I'm going to go ahead and say it's not impossible, but it'd be pretty difficult.
Yeah, you would need like quick effect hand traps on the opponent's turn, right? That's what you would need. And in this era, do those exist?
Or if you have just normal trap cards, you could just set them. And,
okay. Your opponent
but that's if you have them.
Yeah. And if you do another one of these, you can't even use the trap. If you find a way. Yeah, it does feel like even if you had the trap and then you killed this thing and they got back the thing they used to summon it and then played 2 more tuners and did it to you again, you still haven't taken a turn. That's so bad. Oh man, I mean, if that's the thing, like I give it like probably a few months and then people are over it. There is so much printed on this that makes it uninteractable that it just seems absolutely gross. And if they do kill it, it does set you up to do it again. So I'm also going to assume that whatever the Dark Dragon monster is that you're getting back, assuming you got back the one that you sacrificed, you could even get back something else. I'm assuming that that card is no slouch either, that it probably has effects that are super positive to you. This card is very toxic and frustrating, and I think if I didn't know about it coming out on the opponent's turn, I might have thought it was going to be fine, but maybe that's the great thing that was missed and this card got gross. Yeah, there's just too much on this, similar to the last card, that says you can't do anything about this. No interaction, no hope, no happiness, no joy. So let's say that this card got banned.
Final answer.
Yep.
You are correct, CGB. So this card actually had a very interesting trajectory. You can basically ignore like 90% of the card text. The only thing that matters on this is the fact that it makes it that your opponent can't activate cards for the rest of the turn, and that can't be responded to. The reason why that matters is because you figured out, this was the skill check, is that you can synchro summon on the opponent's turn. That was something I don't think I had really shown you up until this point, and so I was trying to see if you could figure out if that was a possibility or not. So this card's actually older. It's from like 2015, 2016. I might be wrong on that, but it was printed a while ago. But the tools weren't really in place to consistently bring this guy out to the field, especially on the opponent's turn, to essentially skip their turn. But Eternal format, as the game aged, it became a lot easier to do so, and this card became an absolute menace, and people were really sick of it. So much so that this card only got banned recently. I think this card only got banned within the past like 6 months on like the last like 2 or 3 ban lists, because it sort of just got to the point where it was just really fucking frustrating. There were some decks prior that were playing it just to like have a big payoff and to try to like win the game that way. But typically the play pattern is you set up the whole combo to summon this on the opponent's turn. Your opponent like draws for turn, which is the first action. You immediately synchro summon into this guy. You lock them out of their turn. They can't do anything. The turn comes back around to you. You already have a 4,000 guy on the field. You might have others still. You just turn everything to attack position and just kill them. Like the game's over. There's nothing else they can do. So very fun, very fun. And so this card, people are so happy this card is banned because this card is so fucking irritating.
As a Yu-Gi-Oh player, how does it feel to have the person that you're playing against say, I activate Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity, like every...
miserable. I feel that any card that says your opponent cannot respond to it, I feel like just shouldn't be in the game. Because I feel like it's such an uninteractive piece of text that... like I understand like why they do it, because they want to push through a crazy effect like this. And to be honest, if there was no way to do this on the opponent's turn, I don't think this card would be that unhealthy. The fact that you can do it on the opponent's turn is what makes this card disgusting. Yeah, it's that I've always had a gripe with that. My audience knows I hate that line of text. And there's several cards, especially competitive cards, that have that line of text, and I wish it just didn't exist, because I think it's anything that's uninteractive kind of defeats the point of playing the game, I feel like.
Yeah, kind of gross. It's kind of gross, is what it is.
Okay, next up, let's take a trip to the Xyz monsters. You remember these?
Sure, I love saying this word, unquote. Zoodiac?
There you go.
Drident? This is not a level 4, it's a something else 4.
Rank 4.
Rank 4, of course. It does not know its own attack and defense. These are mysteries.
It does not.
Okay.
You will soon learn why.
4 level 4 monsters. 4 level 4 monsters.
I will let you know that also does not matter.
Okay, cool. Once per turn, you can also Xyz summon this thing by using one Zoodiac monster you control with a different name as Xyz material. If you used an Xyz monster, any Xyz materials attached to it also become Xyz materials on the card.
So before you go any further, so you remember how to Xyz summon a monster, you overlay them and put the monster on top, correct?
Totally.
Think about Abyss Dweller. You like your Abyss Dweller. Remember, that's how that worked.
I don't.
right?
Sure. Abyss Dweller turns off Graveyard. I don't know what.
Okay, you remember that at least.
Happens.
That's the important part. So mechanically, the Xyz monsters stack monsters underneath to like put a thing on top, and then the cards underneath become essentially part of the card to do things with. So the Zoodiacs don't require two. They require just a singular one, as long as it's another Zoodiac card. So you can stack a bunch of Zoodiacs on top of each other to just get a bunch of things underneath, if that makes sense.
Okay. This card gains attack and defense equal to the attack and defense of all Zoodiac monsters attached to it as materials, whatever. I have a feeling this last line's the interesting one. Once per turn, during either player's turn, you can detach a material and then target one face-up card on the field and destroy it. Okay. Is there any way to, like... I don't see a way to, like, reattach. So this... If there are, like, two critters, two Zoodiacers, you summon this, they go underneath, you remove one, it goes back to where it was on the field. It goes to the graveyard. It goes to the graveyard. You blow up a card on the field. And then on the opponent's turn, you do it again. And you blew up two things, and you sent two of your materials to the graveyard. So if I have... What is this? This is a rank 4. Man, it's really tough without, like... I don't feel like I have a sense of this creature type. Like, do they punch for much damage? Are they aggressive?
No.
Okay. They're like,
I would say they're more control-y than aggressive.
Kind of value-y pieces. Because I'm like, is the point like that you get to hit with one who has very high attack stats and you hit with another who has very high attack stats. Then you play this, put them both underneath, and then you get to kind of hit again with all those attack stats again? Because that would be more like an aggressive strategy for it.
The whole gimmick is that you can constantly stack more Zoodiac Xyz on top of one another, and each of them have their own effect. So like one tutors for a Zoodiac card. One can swap out the materials underneath for one that's in the graveyard. They all do certain things, but because you keep stacking a new one on top, you always have material to use the effect of the next one.
And when you blow up the one thing and it all goes to the graveyard, are you kind of starting over? Or is it kind of the value game where they all get more of them?
Well, so in the example you gave where you detach, pop a thing, your opponent's turn, detach, pop a thing. Let's say you're out of material. You could just stack another Zoodiac and then stack another Drident on top of that stack. And now you have two more material again to pop stuff.
Okay. I mean, it's versatile removal. It seems like it plays a value game, but I don't know. What am I missing? I feel like I'm still missing something because it just seems... It seems good. It seems fine. But you're going to do the thing where you're like, what you may have missed about this card. And I'm going to be like, what? Okay, so where is it? Where's the thing I missed about this card?
He's going back in.
By using one Zoodiac monster you control with a different name as the material. By using one monster you control with a different name. So that's out there. It does its thing. It enters, it attacks, it's something. Then you put it under this thing. Then you throw it in the graveyard. I don't know, man. I'm missing it. The attack and defense are equal to the attack and defense of all the monsters attached to it as materials. So like you said, the thing is, if they put one monster on top of another monster on top of a monster, then it all goes under here. Maybe it attacks for a very large number. This still feels like... It still feels to me like you're putting a lot of eggs in one basket, you know? And like, that can't be great. It still feels like you can make these moves, but if it gets blown up, it's kind of all for not that much. And the idea of detaching it and destroying things is good. The fact you get to destroy two things if you have two materials already is nice. But like, if you remove and detach the materials, it doesn't have any more attack or defense, right? And I don't see a way to like reattach new things to it.
Well, like I said, you can just go from the extra deck and put another Zoodiac monster over this. And then go from the extra deck, put another Drident on top of that stack, and now you have two more materials on your new Drident. One of the materials being a Drident.
Oh, so this can just go get more of it because it's in the extra deck.
Correct. This is very unique to this archetype. Correct.
So
yes.
how often do you do that each turn? Can you just...
You can do it every turn. You can do it every turn.
Can you do it multiple times a turn? Can you like play this, nab two things... Nab a thing, pop a thing, go get another one of this It has to be a different name. That's what it is. Okay.
So you can only throw down one Drident that way per turn. It says that's the first line where it says once per turn you can also exceed using any Zoodiac monster. So you can do it every turn, but you can only do one. So on your first turn, you can stack some Zoodiacs, put Drident on top, pop a thing. Your opponent's turn, pop another thing. If Drident lives, you can stack more Zoodiacs on top of that first Drident and put a second Drident on top of it, and now you have more things that you can detach to pop stuff.
Okay, so since it comes from the extra deck, it's kind of just, it's like free removal for this archetype for like 3 turns.
As long as it sticks out, essentially, you have free removal.
Or at least like 3 turns. Yes. Yeah, you just need another thing to put. Okay, that's got it. That is annoying. What year is this?
This is 2017.
Still not quite Yu-Gi-Oh! 2. In Yu-Gi-Oh! 2, I'd say this is everything. Why everything does this. It would be okay. Back then, it does feel like it just kind of, like, playing against this must have been miserable because every turn you're just going to get stuff popped. I can see how that's not good. The extra deck is the piece I was missing. That's basically free. That this archetype can now deal with everything for several turns in a row.
Correct.
That is atrocious.
And they only need one Zoodiac monster to do it because there are there are effect monsters, Zoodiac monsters that you play in your hand in your deck. So as soon as you play one, they can immediately throw a Drident on top, and they have access to removal at quick effect speed.
God, it doesn't even seem like there's any useful way to really stop it. I guess you're playing like...
This one's very innocuous for people who don't understand Yu-Gi-Oh! This is a tricky one, I will say.
Okay. I mean,
you're starting to put it together, but this one is not as obvious
even deeper.
Why it's good.
Oh, good.
Well, no, I mean you've been slowly unraveling it as you've been going.
This
but
one was
the other
hard.
ones are this one, like the other ones are big flashy effects. It's obvious. This one is very, I wouldn't say it's subtle, but it's a lot more subtle if you're not as familiar with the game.
I think the big risk with this card is probably just the misery of playing against it over and over. So unless you have a bunch of those effects that can't be destroyed, or when they destroyed somehow give you something, but I just, like, that does constrain the meta. It's just, 2017's weird because I feel like it's not Yu-Gi-Oh! 2, but it's developed enough that there's a bunch of these things floating around that this doesn't completely shut down. But it's got to be so annoying to play against. So, like, there's a chance this is fine because the game is more powerful with things that, like, get you enough value that this doesn't ruin you. But it still feels like a nightmare. Did this have to get banned? I do think the play pattern is toxic. It doesn't feel like a Timmy card. Just the ability to always be blowing things up just for playing these because you can pull these out of the extra deck is insane. And like that's
now you're
really stupid. And so yeah, like a game where you just have to slog through all this before any of your stuff can even have a chance to stick to the board. Not to mention dealing with the rest of their deck. Now, also from a deck building standpoint, these fuckers don't have to run real removal. They just have it in their extra deck. So they can just run all Zoodiacs or other spells that hose you because they just need a critical mass of Zoodiacs so that they can keep this thing coming. So it interacts with everything you can do in your deck that would need to be on the board. And the rest of their deck can just be really narrow hosers for certain strategies or just all Zoodiacs if they want to do it that way. I bet the first decks were all Zoodiacs, and then they realized that since they didn't have to devote any spots to removal, they could do other degenerate shit too. So I'm gonna say banned.
No, this card sucks. I'm just kidding. This card was banned. Yes, this card was banned. You got it correct. It's right. The way you just brought it all together at the end, I am very impressed, and I think the audience is gonna love that as well. So you actually hit it right on the head. So this was by far and away the best. As soon as these cards were released, they had an immediate impact. Never before had there been an archetype that only required one monster to start Xyz summoning. Not to mention, I'm only showing you this one. I told you, there's one that tutors for a Zoodiac card in the deck. There's several other of these that do other things. Drident is obviously one of the most egregious, I want to say, because it's always constant interactive removal that you have at your extra deck's disposal at any given moment. And so it's actually exactly like you said. So I don't want to say immediately everyone was playing pure Zoodiac and that's all they were doing. But when people, sort of realize that, oh, these are generic, in quotes, in the sense that they don't have any restriction as to what we can or cannot play, because Yu-Gi-Oh! Is very open-ended that way, other decks started to surface where, oh, we're going to play Kaiju Zoodiac, or we're going to play Paleo Zoodiac, or we're going to play Infernoid Zoodiac. And so everyone just splashed a small Zoodiac engine into their other strategy. And so in addition to everything else that their deck was doing, you would just also have a Drident on your board as well that could just pop stuff every single turn on both players' turns. So much so, like you said, that it just warped deck building, because going into games, you had to just concede to the fact that I need to deal with Drident on an open board every single time I play the game. How am I going to do that? And so players had to dig deep and find plenty of different cards that either would negate Drident to prevent it, from actually popping things, or they would just play some cards that had protection from the effect of being destroyed. That was another way to work around it. But this card was just everywhere. Every single deck was playing Drident, whether you were playing a multitude of Zoodiacs or just a small engine just so you could have access to Drident. Extremely, extremely powerful card. So much so that they did eventually ban it, because people really hated seeing this card, because it was just every single game you were staring down a Drident plus whatever else your opponent's deck was capable of doing. Personally, I love this deck. This is, even though the play pattern sounds toxic, there's a lot of interaction between like Zoodiac decks of the back and forth that it's like some of the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Because of how interactive it actually is. So even though it's all centralized around a very banned card, it actually makes for some of the most interactive Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think it's a lot of fun, personally. But that's just my take on it.
Of course you would. Of course you would say that was good Yu-Gi-Oh!
And one thing you overlooked.
Thank you. Yes. Go on.
I know you were waiting for it.
Uh-huh.
If your Drident survives for the turn, let's say, and the turn comes back around to you, instead of just overlaying more Zoodiacs on the first Drident that you summoned, you can summon a second Drident, because these don't have a hard once per turn. They have a soft once per turn, which means it's once per copy. So if you're able to set up double Drident with material, the game is just over, because then you're popping 2 cards per turn on both turns. And that was basically just a checkmate. Doesn't happen often, but if you got your opponent in that situation, they were just dead to rights.
Yikers.
Yeah. Maybe I'll show you the whole archetype for Zoodiac one day.
Maybe.
That's I think when you get the full scope of this, you're going to be like, oh, this is fucking crazy. This deck is, it's not, I wouldn't say it's tier element crazy, but it's still pretty crazy coming from your game, I'll say. But all right, only a few left, and we've definitely saved some of the best for last.
Thunder Dragon Colossus. Level 4. Look at this beast. That's a Timmy card. I don't need to read it.
Okay.
Look at this. Look at it. That is amazing. All right, attack is 2600, defense is 2400. Thunder fusion effect. Thunder Dragon plus Thunder Monster. Do you think they mentioned Thunder enough? Must be fusion
I don't think so,
summoned. Okay, or special summoned. During the turn, a Thunder Monster's effect was activated in the hand by tributing one Thunder effect non-fusion monster. In which case, you do not use polymerization. Yeah, we're doing great. I'm so here for it. I'm just going to assume all that happens all the time, no cost. Cards cannot be added from the main deck to your opponent's hand except by drawing them. From the main deck to your opponent's hand except by drawing them. What a line. If this card would be destroyed or by battle or card effect, you can banish one Thunder Monster from your graveyard instead.
So I'll give you a little bit of context. Colossus is based off of one of the first cards ever printed called Thunder Dragon. So I'll just go ahead and... this is the original Thunder Dragon, so you can give this guy a read. Very simple effect.
Oh, good. Just what I needed. More cards to read. This one's at least straightforward. Look at this little green buddy. This is a level 5. You can discard this card. Add up to 2 Thunder Dragon from your deck to your hand. It just gets 2 more of itself. It's level 5, so you still have to like tribute summon it.
And so for the first part of Colossus's effect, it says if a thunder monster activated its effect, you can just tribute any thunder monster you control to just special summon this straight out of the extra deck. So I showed you Thunder Dragon because it's a thunder monster that you just has an effect that activates in the hand because you discard it to get 2 more. You've now met that condition. All of the Thunder Dragons, there's more of them, but all of them have an effect that you discard them from the hand to do something.
And then,
so it is.
And then it comes out and hoses the opponent's ability to try to do the same thing. If they were
actually,
also
in theory, yes,
Dragoning.
it does.
Yeah,
in theory, yes,
hoses
yes,
itself.
Correct. Killer in the mirror match.
Damn! I bet the Thunder Dragon mirror match was a big deal. If this card would be destroyed, you can banish a thunder monster from the graveyard, and you discarded one, so it already has like a "don't destroy me" kind of tied in.
Correct.
Okay. And this one comes from extra deck, summon, blah, blah, blah. You also have to tribute 1 thunder effect non-fusion monster. Is that... It's just so much stuff. And what the heck is polymerization?
So remember from way back when we first started, fusion monsters, you need to have 2 monsters plus a fusion spell card, or polymerization, which is the classic one. You would have those 2 cards, you activate your fusion card, put those to the grave, and then summon thing out of your extra deck. So that's the traditional way to fusion summon. This thing just cheats itself out onto the field. You can summon it the traditional way, but you don't have to. And most of the time, you're never doing that.
Okay, so literally that whole line of text, all the way up to the last parenthesis with polymerization, all that's really saying is discard a dragon and get this for free.
Correct. Yes. A thunder monster specifically.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, it's really like that is a heck of a rate, especially considering like graveyard decks and things like that. Just I love that more than half the text on the card applies to a cost that is completely irrelevant.
Welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh, my friend.
Okay, yeah. Do people alter their cards like they do in Magic? Can you go in and just alter by like Sharpie lining all the words you don't actually need to care about?
No.
I guess the question we're asking then is how good is that? That you discard card, you get 2600 monster. And if those discard effects are such that like Thunder Dragon, where you get 2 more monsters, there you go. And it has kind of this, MTG would call it Staxy effect, that says the opponent can't do this thing. They can't add cards from their main deck to their hand except by drawing them. So it turns off tutoring effects. So in a way, with the right build, this is a deck that shuts down opposing tutors, which can be good in a combo-centric meta, like really good, but is this something every deck uses? Is this something that all decks rely on, this kind of tutoring effect in some way, so that this card becomes the bad guy? Because if
you want me to help you?
A little. I want to finish my thought here. In a meta where one deck is doing lots of tutoring, is way too consistent, and is dominating because of that, this is the good guy. And in a meta where every deck needs to tutor to make their deck do a thing, this is very much the bad guy. So Is this the good guy or the bad guy? Do you have any context?
Yu-Gi-Oh, as you know, is very averse to draw power, hence why Pot of Greed is still banned. As such, Yu-Gi-Oh is plentiful with tutors. We have tutors for tutors, and we have tutors for tutors for tutors. Every card in Yu-Gi-Oh, especially as we get into Yu-Gi-Oh 2, every deck has cards that tutor for other cards.
That makes it sound like this is the bad guy.
Okay.
Yeah, and like you said, like you brought it up, the lack of draw power means it's not like they can just play a 1 mana draw 2 anytime soon. Or not even 1 mana, a free draw 2. Nobody just has a Pot of Greed lying around.
While we do have draw power, it just comes at a high cost. Do you remember the Pot of Desires, where you have to banish the top 10 cards of your deck before you can draw the 2? So we do have some draw power, but I will say that tutoring is much more common than draw power.
So they probably don't like this card. And you can get it very much for free. Like discard one if you are playing those dragons, like you showed me those dragons. If you're just playing those dragons and this is in your extra deck, all you have to do is have one of those dragons in your hand, discard it, get this on the field, and you also get 2 cards added to your hand. It's an effect that doesn't affect you. It only affects the opponent. And if you get the dragon first, they can't even do that to get their dragon. Or wait, they can do it, but they don't get the dragons added to their hand.
Correct. So they could pitch the Thunder Dragon.
Yeah, they probably still
and then
would.
not. I mean, yeah, there's a world they could.
See, this one is really tough because I'm looking at it, and it does have kind of a prevention effect, right? You can protect it, and if you went and fetched those Thunder Dragons, I mean, you kind of just want them in the yard anyway, so discarding them is not a big deal. So it's like, yeah, it protects itself a bit, and it has this effect that can really shut the opponent down. But I also know that there are a lot of times where you run cards like this, and I can think of a few cards in Magic. I think Ley Lines might be the best example in Magic, where you can play them for free if they're in your opening hand, right? If you don't get to play them at the start of the game, it's often just too late by the time you play it. I spent the last few days playing a deck that had the answers to my opponent's graveyard strategies, but if they went first, they got to do the whole thing before I got to play it, so it didn't matter. So part of me says, like, if you just go second or don't have this as soon as you need it, and the opponent does the tutoring they need to do, and then you draw this, it's probably very bad. And if you do get it out early, it's a hoop to jump through. Like, I want to say it's banned, but I also have these alarm bells that is like, things don't always work out the way you want them to. This one's a tough one for me. I am really on the fence. I've been doing all right.
What's your gut telling you?
Yeah, I've been doing all right. So I'm going to use my gut, and I could be like, I'll probably be wrong on this one, but we're going to 50-50 land because that's how I feel. This is a coin flip to me. I'm going to say not banned.
Final answer. You would be correct. If it wasn't for the fact that it was banned for several years, because it is currently unbanned, but it was banned for quite a few years. So one thing you may have missed, my favorite phrase for you, is when you use the ability to discard a Thunder to do whatever, and then you tribute a guy to bring out Colossus onto the field, there's nothing stopping you from tributing another Thunder guy and summoning a second Colossus to your field, or a third Colossus to your field. As long as you have some Thunder guys on the field to get rid of, you could hypothetically end on the very first turn of the game, or if you're going second, you could summon 3 of these guys out, and they're still 2,600, and 3 of them is lethal if you get in directly with everything. Very, very frustrating and annoying card. This is a very polarizing one. A lot of people like this card, and I would say many more people hate this card. Just the fact that it's a floodgate that prevents your opponent from playing the game. That's not very fun. There's a lot of tutors in Yu-Gi-Oh!, and that's the main way that people play the game. Similar to Drident, there were some decks that weren't even Thunder Dragon decks that would do their thing and also have a Colossus on their board as well, just to be annoying and have a lingering, like, floodgate type effect to prevent them from doing even more stuff in addition to everything else. And that was very frustrating. And the fact that it protects itself too is very irritating. So it did get banned for a time. It's legal now just because these decks are kind of power crept, to be honest, and it's just kind of... It's still a really good card, don't get me wrong, but it's just not really... The game has sort of just evolved to the point where we're kind of like past something like this being good. Because this card was like from 2018, I want to say. So it's definitely an older card for sure, but a very, very strong one at that. And it was banned.
Nasty. Nasty. I mean, look at him. It's too cool to be legal.
He is very... I mean, he's a very cool...
Good looking card.
Very good looking card. And it's cool because it's a retrain of a very old card. That original Thunder Dragon is from the second set they ever printed. And so, fun of the Eternal format. We get retrains like this all the time. 2 left. Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. Dude, it's too sparkly. What are we doing here? Just, oh my god, anime. What the hell? Anyway, it's a level 8 Masterpiece. Of course, the name is Masterpiece. The true Draco slaying king. Okay, whatever. Defense is 2950. Worm effect. To tribute summon this card face up, you can tribute. Where can I start? Where should I start reading? Let's go down to
No, that part's important, actually. That part's important.
Okay. Damn it. To tribute summon this card face up, you can tribute continuous spell trap cards. You can tribute continuous spell trap cards you control, as well as monsters, unaffected by the effects of cards with the same card type as the original card type of the cards tributed for its tribute summon. What a sentence. I mean, it means to say this card is unaffected by these things, right?
Correct.
Okay. Once per turn during either player's turn, if you control this tribute summoned monster, you can banish one continuous spell trap card from your graveyard, then target one other card on the field and destroy it.
Do you need the simple version?
The simple version is you can sacrifice all kinds of different cards to this, but whichever kind you sacrifice, it can't be touched by those things.
Correct. And keep in mind, it is an 8-star monster, so you have to tribute 2 things in order to bring it out. So hypothetically, if you tribute a monster and a spell card, a continuous spell card, it will be immune to monster and spell cards.
And then once on either player's turn, you can pitch things from your graveyard to destroy other things. And there's probably at least... Well, no, it has to be continuous spell or trap. And
Correct.
Then you can... Yeah, which you probably have at least one of, probably 2.
Sure. So in my example, if you tributed a continuous spell and a monster, you're going to have at least that continuous spell to banish to pop something.
This strikes me as a control deck win con. This seems very much like a deck that goes a little against the grain of all of this monster Timmy nonsense, and instead plays some the forgotten card types, continuous spells and traps, and then uses them later in the game for removal and plays this thing with protection from all these things so it can try to end the game.
You know, I don't think that is an unfair assessment of this card. I think that is pretty accurate.
So what would get a card like this banned? If a deck comprised of a lot of spells and traps was unnaturally good?
Let's also say, too, that a lot of continuous spells and traps are cards that are going to be preventing your opponent from doing things.
Stacksy stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
Stacksy things. Well, one of the interesting things about that is you don't always want to sacrifice them then.
That's true.
But you can wait, like it's control. You bide your time, and then you sacrifice the thing at the right time, maybe when you have a backup or you've covered all your bases, blown up the board, I don't know. And then you bring this out, and they can't deal with it, and it punches a few times and defeats your hobbled opponent. Immediately, my thought is that if a deck full of continuous spells and traps was too good, I would have heard more about it somewhere.
Okay.
Because it just seems like we're never talking about spells and traps. It just seems like they're not even there most of the time. Almost. Okay. I'm pretty sure we have done full videos where we could have ignored their very existence from start to finish.
Maybe this was the payoff they needed, and I haven't showed you yet.
And then they banned it? Like, are you kidding me? They finally make a spell and trap deck, and they're like, get that shit out of here. Bring back our monsters. It's possible, but this level of anti-control, anti-spell, anti-trap propaganda is clearly, this bias cannot stand. It's ridiculous. I don't think they could do that. Would they do that? I hope not. I would like to think that they have an appreciation for players who want more out of life than 15 different ways to summon a freaking dragon, okay? But maybe they don't. Maybe that's Yu-Gi-Oh players. Maybe that's all we've got. I look at this card, and I see trying to make something different happen.
Okay.
When trying to not metagame it, I can see that a card that is immune from everything and can use pieces of an already played game to shut down what the opponent tries to do and destroy everything can be obnoxiously oppressive. The fact that you can banish the continuous spells and trap cards from the graveyard to destroy anything on the field gives those cards a whole second life. And I can see why people would find that oppressive. But for me, it's really hard for me to look at this card and say you're a problem when it literally feels like past the first couple, like, very early days of Yu-Gi-Oh, especially since, I don't know, like 2010, 2012, 2014, the cards you've shown me, it just feels like spells and traps don't exist. They have nothing to hang on to. Like, they're used as like sideboard cards. They're used as gotchas when some weird new summoning effect shows up, but they're not like a deck. And this says you can be a deck. There's more to you. And I like that. I think that this kind of thing should happen. I think that they should have that kind of identity. And if you're going to tell me that this was too oppressive and nobody liked playing against it, and that's why it got banned, then you're a bunch of lightweight babies. You need to grow a pair. But no, I mean, I kind of get it. Still, I don't want this to be banned because I want to believe that these cards can matter. I want to believe that they can be a deck and that it can win the game. I'm cheering for this card. Now, I could go over this again and read it line by line for the thing I may have missed, and I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna stick up for my friend, my buddy here, the tribute. In fact, I don't even care about Masterpiece. Dumb name. I care about the continuous spells and traps. I want them to matter. So I'm going to say this card is not banned. This is a good, healthy, awesome card. Let's go build a spell and trap deck. It's going to be great. This card's totally fine.
I think a lot of people would agree with you, CGB. I think a lot of people would agree with you. But fuck this card. It's banned.
Damn it.
I will say, you will be happy to know they are probably unbanning it. It is unbanned currently in the OCG, and they're probably going to unban it here soon in the TCG as well, because typically that happens more often than not. Because I think they're reprinting it. If they didn't already reprint it in the OCG, I think they're also reprinting it here in the TCG. But this card is so miserable to play against. So the reasoning for that is it's only immune to 2 of the 3 types of cards in the game, Monster, Spell, and Trap. Generally speaking, most decks are playing monsters and spells. So it's always going to be immune to 99% of the decks that you're playing against. And if you happen to stumble into the decks that have trap cards in them, or like primarily trap cards, the more controlling decks, then you just tribute it with a trap card, and it's immune to everything again anyway. And so it's like, oh boy, look at this fun, non-interactive card that I have to work my way through that basically is unkillable.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would love it. You would love it. The deck that there are multiple decks that played this, but the one, literally what you described, it is like Masterpiece Turbo. It is like 3 copies of Masterpiece and then like all spells and traps, and that's all the deck is basically.
Yeah.
You would love it, and it's a bunch of just like stacks like stuff that makes it the opponent is miserable. That would be, you get to play some of like the most broken draw cards in the game as well. Oh man, you would love it. This would be right up your alley. So maybe when Masterpiece is legal again, I show you that deck, but yeah, fuck this card. This card is so miserable. And there are people who will die, like you, they will die on the hill that this card is perfectly fine and balanced. No. The fact that you're immune to 2/3 of the card pool is bullshit. And there's other cards that go along with this that make it even more bullshit. But by himself, this card is so miserable. And a lot of people would say it's like 8 years old now. There's plenty more ways to deal with it. Whatever. I hate this card. A lot of people hate this card. But last but not least, CGB, I heard you like dinosaurs. I heard you're a fan of dinosaurs.
I am.
Okay. I thought we would end on...
Nope, that's more of a I mean, it says a dinosaur effect. This is definitely a Godzilla type vibe. Like, look at the upright standing with the big tail with the scales and stuff.
He's a Tyrano.
I know, but he's got Godzilla energy, dude. He's got
oh my God.
He's got such Godzilla energy.
I can't win.
Classic Godzilla music. Do we have that? Do we get demonetized? Anyway.
Probably.
Level 10. Ultimate Conductor Tyrano. So cool. So freaking cool. So this is attack 3500, defense 3200, dinosaur effect. Cannot be normal summoned, of course. Must be special summoned from your hand by banishing 2 dinosaur monsters from your graveyard. Yes, more dinosaurs. Once per turn. During the main phase, quick effect, you can destroy 1 monster in your hand or field. And if you do, change all face-up monsters your opponents control to face-down defense position. This card can attack all monsters your opponents controls once each. At the start of the damage step, if this card attacks a defense position monster, you can inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent. If you do, send that defense position monster to the graveyard. Does it take damage from the defense position monster, though? Does it flip back up? No?
Nope.
So you turn everything of theirs face down.
So if they have 5 monsters, you flip them all down, and then this thing runs them all over and will deal 5,000 damage to them.
You attack all of them, and they take 1,000 damage. It kills them. What? Okay. You can destroy 1 monster in your hand or field. So you can also destroy a card in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. So as long as you have a monster on the field or hand after the 2 dinos, this one you have to get in your hand, though. It's not in the special deck.
Correct. Yes. I will say there are plenty of ways to tutor this guy to your hand. So that's
sure. This is a Timmy card.
How does this compare to the dinos in Magic, out of curiosity?
I mean, we have a dinosaur called the Apex Altasaur that when it enters the battlefield can like fight everything on the field.
Oh, it's similar.
Yeah, it's
similar.
a 10-10. It's pretty cool that way. It doesn't also damage the opponent's face. Like in that way, this is like a card called Massacre Worm that when it enters, all the opponent's creatures get like a -2/-2, and whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, they lose 2 life. So a Massacre Worm against a giant board can sometimes just kill the opponent.
Okay.
So it's kind of like that too at the start of the damage step, and it can attack all of them. So yeah, so like what you said, if they have 5 things that are face down, this can attack all of them. Can it also attack face? That day on that turn? No? Okay.
No. You either go monsters or if they have no monsters, you can just go face with it.
Okay. It doesn't have any protection. It's not protecting itself or anything.
It sort of has protection in a way.
Yeah, I guess the opposing monsters, let's see. It's a quick effect, right? So if the opponent tries to activate something from a monster, you can respond by flipping them face down. Does that negate their effects?
No, but if you do it preemptively. So let's say something has a sorcery speed removal effect. When they summon the monster, you would have a window to activate Tyrano to flip it down before it has the chance to use its sorcery speed effect. So that's like the protection in quotes.
I mean, there's the thing I keep seeing is that this is really cool, but there's when you have to get into different phases, when you have to successfully attack the opponent's monster to get this thing to happen, when you have to destroy an opponent's monster, like, and it has to be on your turn. It's a once per turn. If you did this multiple times with multiple Tyranos, would that matter? Doesn't seem like it really matters. So it's like I'm finding holes in just basically getting the payoff. Because if you have to go to combat and somebody can then quick effect something, hand trap card, something, then maybe you don't get the benefit. And on their turn, they can turn them face up again, right? That's my understanding.
They can if they survive.
If they survive, yeah. So there might be a few ways to keep the actual blowout from really happening. It would be my point. You can tutor it up, sure.
Also keep in mind that if your opponent's monsters are face down, they cannot synchro summon or exceed summon or do any of the summoning mechanics with them because they have to be face up in order to do that.
So that can be interference against hand traps is what I'm getting. Maybe? I don't know. Still, like, maybe I have to get rid of the mentality that they could play a spell or a trap card to like interact because nobody does that. Yeah, I guess if it is all about creatures, this is pretty strong. It still feels like there are guardrails. Like, also, this is the first dinosaur I've seen. And maybe you need 2 other dinosaurs. So this is another one that you can probably see coming. Like,
yes, I would say that's true. Yes.
Yeah. So how, if you see it coming, how well can you play around it? Is a good question. And in a world where everything has haste, it's like, how often are you passing with this big ass board? And can you play around that if your opponent's playing dinosaurs?
Unless this just kills them before they get the chance to do anything.
It's possible, yeah. I don't know, man. I'm still looking.
You're not feeling it.
I'm not,
You're not feeling it.
This feels like a Timmy card. It really does. It feels like there are things in here that are so magical Christmas land to me that if you tell me that this is like some kind of a busted, had to be banned, oh my God, nobody can use their things. Flipping them face down is so bad for them. And then you kill them and they take 5,000 damage. And I'm like, I don't know. If my opponent is playing dinosaurs, I would hope there's enough agency in your game that you don't have to just put 5 monsters on the field and pass to them and get your ass blown out. So this feels like the most Timmy card. This feels like a very, very Timmy card to me. The magical Christmas land. Oh my God, when I do this, and it works on like little Jimmy, but it doesn't work when you go to the tournament, you know? So I'm gonna say this card is fine.
Final answer.
Yeah, final answer. They wouldn't ban a dino. Look at it's too cool. It's too Timmy.
They would never ban a dino. Yeah, they would never ban a dino. So Tyrano's nuts. I think maybe it's hard to like understand how good flipping things face down is. Like, you've learned that setting monsters face down as we get into Yu-Gi-Oh! 2 is not particularly good, but things that have the effect to interact with the opponent to flip their stuff down reactively is actually quite strong for being able to stop them from going into their extra deck to summon all of their super powerful things. That's like turn ending a lot of the time, depending on the way that some decks function. So I think Tyrano's effect is actually a bit innocuous in terms of like how good it actually is. And then they can't flip those up on their turn if they already summoned them. So they kind of just have to pass, and then Tyrano's just going to get in and ram over everything and just kill them, basically. But you're right. Yep, this is a Timmy card.
Okay.
It's a good card. It's a good card, don't get me wrong. If you're playing dinosaurs, you're going to play this card because it is, out of all the things I've shown you, maybe it's the most Timmy out of everything I've shown you, but to be fair, it's still a very strong card for what it's worth. This is a card that got people very excited for the dinosaur archetype. There are a lot of good cards in the dinosaur deck, but it's just, it had its moment in the spotlight where it was like a very good deck for a small period of time relative to all of Yu-Gi-Oh!, but not nearly as egregious as some of the other things that I've shown you in today's video. But I know you like dinosaurs, so I thought we'd end on a fun one. And he is a very fun one for what it's worth. But you did not take the bait. Congratulations.
Nope. Is there an anime episode with this or an anime arc with
No.
this? No?
No.
I would watch
unfortunately.
that. Okay.
There is a guy, though, in the anime who all he does is play dinosaur cards, for the record. So,
dude, we found
multiple.
10-year-old me. Let's go.
There you go. There you go. So how do you feel about Yu-Gi-Oh's boss monsters?
It's an interesting spread, to be honest. Like, you go from the big stompy dinosaurs, and in Magic, if I were talking about Timmy cards, I'd be talking mostly about like the Tyrano. But you've got some toxic pretenders up in here. Just gross, remove everything all the time. You can't do stuff. Those aren't Timmy monsters in the Magic sense. In the Magic sense, those are stacks. Those are like competitive. In Commander, it's like CDH kind of stuff. So,
for sure. Yeah. We definitely have some cards that are even more Timmy-like, but I had to make it a bit difficult for you. I couldn't just give you all the easy ones like Tyrano. So
sure.
But I'd say you did pretty good overall.
Thank you. Do I have to figure out what got banned twice now?
Oh, I forgot. You do. Go ahead and take your guess. What would you say?
Well, going off some of the things, my front runners, the towers is still up there for me. I could see them thinking over time that this became fine, and it was not fine. The Zoodiac Drident, I can see maybe they thought at some point this was fine, and it was not fine, and it just became ubiquitous again, and that's kind of lame. The Thunder Dragon Colossus, honestly, I don't see it. I still don't see it. But maybe, dude, why would they unban this card? If they really got to that point where it had to be banned, it feels like this is one of those cards that you would not take off the ban list because people probably really hated it. I can't see a lot of people loving it. I don't know. The art is great, though. But didn't you say it was unbanned, though, recently?
Colossus, yes.
Yeah. Yes. So it doesn't strike me as something that went on and off for years. It seems like it is like a recent thing that it would be unbanned. I don't know. It doesn't ring that way to me. Masterpiece? Nah. One time was hard enough, and they need to bring it back. Quite frankly, it did.
So you're
nothing
between
wrong.
Towers and Drident right now, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick.
Interesting.
I'm gonna stick to my very first gut. I'm gonna go with Towers.
Final answer.
Yeah.
It was Drident.
Dang it!
As a matter of
Okay.
fact, I'm
right
actually
there.
shocked. I'm actually shocked you even had Drident in consideration, considering how innocuous it is. But yes, Drident was banned. They unbanned it. They put it to 1, so it was limited still to a singular copy. And they're like, oh yeah, this is fine. And a few lists later, they rebanned it.
Because 1 in every deck. Yeah, just everybody had to play it.
It was just as annoying as it was the first time. Let's be honest. It was just so annoying. Yeah, it was, you really only need the 1 to be fair. Like, having multiple is even more annoying, but it's almost just like a checkmate move. Just having the 1, not to mention there are ways to recycle it, but again, Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't go many turns more often than not. So if you just have your board and stick the Drident, Drident also is a combo enabler, if you can believe that, because you can target destroy your own cards that get effects when they get destroyed. And not many other cards are that consistent at doing that because you can just get Drident immediately out of the extra deck. So, yeah. They realized not too long after they unbanned it, they're like, yep, we need to ban this card again.
It's the low extra deckness that's the problem. That's the problem.
It's extremely efficient is the problem with it. It's just too good. It does too much for one card, and I don't know. I love it. I love Drident. What can I say? I don't like the toxic cards. I like the cards that let you play the game. I'm like you. I don't want to deny my opponent from playing. I want to have a good game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Damn it.
I just want to activate my trap card. I want to do the...
You just want to play Masterpiece.
I want to do the thing one time.
To be fair, Masterpiece is just like souped up Drident in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. But you get to also play spells and traps and not just pretend they don't exist.
So guys, that's going to wrap it up for another video. I really hope you all enjoyed. Let's go ahead and shout the patrons for all of their continued support. So shout outs to Shout1317, Tim00x3, MBT Play Medolce, Moto, Cameron L. Smith, The Synchro Guy, Pony Stark, Dan the Man Hoban, Little Fadeleaf, Draconic, Dylan Rare Hunter, JW11860, Flannel Daddy, literally all of the guinea pigs, Cheeks McLapperty, Stolfin Amethyst, MBT Cancel by all community soon, Cancel by all committee soon, Cancel by all players soon, Wonder Waffle, MBT and Nimnims, One Boxer Brief Fueled Knight of Passion, Daniel Howell, Electrician of the Ice Barrier, Astro Random, Arco, and the Nova 129. Thank you guys so much again for watching, and we will see you next time.